Thank you for coming out, you guys. I know that I want to say thank you to Dual Security and DNewTech for allowing us to come out here. I mean, this is a great place. I mean, I love it. This is what true startup is. And I want to also say thanks to Grow Detroit. We're in collaboration with Grow Detroit right now to kind of come out here. Again, you guys all know that. Yeah, they can hear me. You guys can hear me, right? Yeah. So it's basically coming out for DNewTech. And again, you know, one of the things that the whole purpose of why we're doing this is so that way we can just share ideas, be able to share the resource, and just learn from each other. I think as a startup person myself, I mean, this is one of the type of things that I learn most from. I'm not in a class and not in a room, especially venture capitalists. They don't help me. So basically, these are the type of venues that really does help. And I learn a lot from everybody, especially this guy here. Hopefully you guys get a chance to stick around to hear Doug here kind of talk about his company, Dual Security. And great news for Doug as well as for the whole team here of Dual Security for getting the investment that just been announced. $5 million, guys. Good job. That is huge. And keep going, man. Keep going. The sky's the limit. So with that, I know our whole format is usually, we have people pitching and we have a guest speaker, but today's such a special day, we decided to just give it all to Dual Security, to give them the opportunity to share with us their origin, the way they started up, and hopefully where they are now and where they're heading in the future. And hopefully we can all learn as well, because I know I can. So with that, I know that Alex Southern, who's from Grow Detroit, he would, as we're partnering and doing this event, he's kind of stuck on the road, and so what we're going to do is we're going to get started. I'm going to just make it simple. I'm going to let Doug introduce himself, let him talk about his company, and then afterward we'll just take questions, all right? Sounds good? Okay.
All right, so I apologize that we don't have more seats. I don't think, Raj, is it going to be useful or not?
Depends on the people. If you move back here, I can see you better.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so if you guys want to grab any seats available or whatever, I feel bad if you guys are standing the whole time, but we'll try to make it pretty quick. I also want to steal too much of Alex's fire, since I know he didn't tend to have a bunch of questions and so forth, and so...
he'll be coming in about 5 minutes.
Okay. Maybe you should use that.
Yeah. So, is it working?
Just turn up the volume on one.
Is it working now? Or?
Do a sound test.
Yeah, sound check. 1, 2. Hello? Hello? No? Same? Is it the same? Better? Coming out of that, but... Coming out of it? Alright. So I'll try and move on. So yeah, so the quick skinny and duo, just so you guys are familiar with the company, and maybe we'll start with where you guys are actually. So you're in the Tech Brewery, and the Tech Brewery is about 3 years old. We started this thing back in 2009, after we sort of drew down a lot of the extended operation of Zatu. So I joined Zatu about 2 years in. It's a tech transfer company out of the University of Michigan, based half here and half in Zurich, Switzerland. All the business was in Zurich. All the engineers were here. And I didn't start Zatu. I joined it again once Sugi and some of his co-founders from when Sugi and his team actually from Arbor reached out to me to help them kind of build and grow the operation. Zatu grew really quickly. It's still here, right next door. But at one point, all of this was actually Zatu, like half of this building, basically, nearly. The challenge we had was we ran into legal trouble. Right, we were basically doing live P2P streaming TV, and as it turns out, a lot of the content owners don't really like it, even if you're licensing the content legally. To do that, and so anyway, we got stuck into it with a bunch of sort of issues as you grew in Europe. But by now the company's successful, doing quite well, profitable in all major markets. And I think nearly 7 million users. I think it was about 5 when we left. But anyway, as we drew down a lot of the Zatu operation, we turned the rest of the building into effectively a tech co-op. Right? So all this space you see here is sort of the big war room where we start companies for $50 a month at a desk. For a full-time desk, you can where you can keep your stuff and no one's going to move it unless guests are here, start shipping stuff around. It's $200 a month, or more than one desk, it's $150. But we try to keep it really, really affordable, and we try to keep it in a location where we're close by a lot of the resources that are available in Ann Arbor, like the close proximity to the engineering school, which is just like half mile this way, and Central Campus, which is about half mile that way. Because again, a lot of the benefit of being in Ann Arbor is again the close proximity to an organization that spends $1.5 billion every year on research in the University of Michigan. And so we have about 30 companies represented today in the brewery, and by now it's the whole building, including the basement. We just had a Pillar Technology, Pillar guys. Oh, these guys just took the basement, which we'll go to after this, because the basement's awesome. I've never seen a basement with like 20-foot ceilings, like as high as this, in the basement. But this place was apparently, according to the historical register, it was an actual operating brewery back in the 1880s. And as the story goes, it was one of Ann Arbor's first minority-owned businesses. It was actually a German Jew and a black guy who actually started a brewery in Ann Arbor. And then Prohibition happened and then turned into an iron foundry. So that's what all the heavy equipment is, but we still call it a brewery affectionately. Okay, so with that, let me describe a little bit about what Duo does. We started the okay, this may cycle back. So I've been here for about 18 years. I'm actually from Maryland originally, but straight out of school I did a consultancy, a boutique security consultancy that was mostly focused on New York banks, financials, and then a bunch of Vegas casinos. We decided to do product, and we realized that we couldn't really scale the business beyond people. Right? So we hit the wall with about $3 million in revenue. We realized that we needed to build something that could scale on its own. And so we built a product that we ended up selling successfully to NFR, which is bought by Checkpoint, a big public company. So that was our first exit, and then for about a year after that, I did a bunch of work on a bunch of random projects back at the university with the guy who would have been my advisor, Peter Henneman. And while I was at the university, and that's one of the nice things actually about having something like the university in town, right? It's a nice anchoring place for people to go hang their hat in between gigs, or if they're sort of figuring things out. And that's what I was doing. Basically, we did that, and I also did a bunch of work on the back-end protocol behind Napster, right? So that was also something else I got involved with, but even then, at that time, I knew that that was not a good business model, right? Rampant piracy. So, anyways, after that, we started Arbor. So that was back in 2000, when there were like 15-year-old kids who were wiping out entire sites on the internet just for fun, right? For bragging rights on IRC. Kids like Mafia Boy, a 15-year-old kid in Canada who took out eBay, Amazon, CNN, E-Trade, Yahoo, all these guys. And at that time, we realized that the internet was really not safe for business, and that a lot of the infrastructure security research that Farnham Jahanian, who used to be chair of the department here, and a bunch of students were doing, could provide a solution. So we commercialized that. That was a tech transfer out of the University of Michigan. Spun that out with $11 million in funding, which is a lot. That was just at the height of the bubble, and we secured that funding just before it crashed, right? So, here we're sitting around with $11 million and going after telecom. And then, a year later, as we're actually getting to the point of commercialization, actually having built the product and trying to go to market with it and selling to all the major providers, we sort of saw the secondary effects, right? Where, the largest bankruptcies in the history of global capitalism at that point were, before Enron and AIG and all those kind of folks, they were my customers. There's WorldCom, Google Crossing, all those kind of guys, right? So I moved to New York, lived on site at Bloomberg, where I begged these guys to let me sit there and I'll be your bitch. Anything you want me to do, I'll do, but let me build you a product and let's figure out something that we can sell. And we were successful in doing that. We built them a very interesting internal security product that we ostensibly repurposed some of the technology that we developed, right, from the core sort of Arbor IP, but had nothing in reality to do with any of it. It was completely different. But we built that very quickly, sold it to Bloomberg, sold it then to the rest of the big financials on Wall Street, and the rest is sort of history. Arbor grew from 5 people back in 2000 to, we finally sold the company last year for 10 years, at about 300 employees, 120 million revenue annually, and we sold for a good multiple of that. And so, about 3 years ago, I left to go do Zatu. When Zatu sort of wrapped up for me, I went to join Barracuda Networks, which is another U of M alum founded company, about 600 employees, pretty big company actually out in the valley, but with a big engineering office here through consolidation of a lot of the acquisitions they've been doing. Even today, they have about 120% office, and they're growing to add, I think, another 500 engineers something crazy. Yeah, it turns out security market's big, and it's all I've ever really done or known, with the one detour of like P2P, and which I consider to be really security sort of related anyway. Coming back to Duo, it was an interesting exercise for me, because when I was at Barracuda, I kind of quickly realized that the things I wanted to do there I couldn't really do. We were trying to build build teams there to kind of shift their business more to be cloud-based, and it just made no sense. These guys had a lot of cash in the bank. It made a lot more sense to roll up a bunch of companies instead, and which they already had been doing. And so we ended up buying 4 companies. We delivered 3. We bought 2 in the time that I was there. One was a company down in Atlanta, affiliated with some friends that started actually the first internet security company down in Atlanta called ISS. And the other was a company out of Austria, which I knew from my time in Zurich with Zatu. And so after that, I decided to go. I can't really sort of sit on the other side of the table, sort of buy side M&A, and just sit around and shop for companies. It's not really what I like to do. And so we spun up a company called Duo. Jono was just finishing his PhD at the time.
Not close enough to finishing, but close enough to take a few years off.
Yeah. He gives him a lot of credit. He took a 2-year hiatus on finishing his PhD as we did Duo, and was paying tuition to finish the whole time, which is pretty tough. But it's all worth it, right? So he's not Dr. John Overhead PhD. He hates doctor, I don't know why. We spun the company out again, trying to go after the biggest problem, computer security, which by now is a very different problem. It's also teenagers basically de-pantsing, right? The biggest companies on the internet, but now not through DDoS, but through account takeover and online fraud. And so what we've sort of done is followed the threat and made sure that we've come up with solutions that are actually can address the problem at scale. Because that's what we see today. This is a major epidemic. Let me show you real quickly. I don't want to bore you with a sales presentation or anything, but it is my sales presentation, so I'll show you a little bit of it. Sorry. So yeah, our team is a little bigger than this now. As of 4 weeks ago, this was all it was. As of 3 weeks ago, it's now 6 people, including Brian, who just joined us actually from DC. And by now it's actually 9 people. So we are growing. But many of us we've all worked together before, and that's one of the sort of lessons learned, right, in sort of building companies. That it's always better to work with people you've worked with before. So it's to the extent possible, if you sort of keep tabs of all the gems that you meet in your career and kind of keep them close by and take care of them and all that kind of stuff. It's actually very useful. So yeah, we're solving the biggest problem in computer security today. The way that we're doing it, though, is actually by kind of pairing up usability, which is actually at odds pretty much with security. If something's secure, it's pretty much like a pain in the ass. But we've tried very hard to make all this stuff very easy and scalable, right? Usable at large scale, which is the biggest difference between us and our competitors. And again, we're sort of following this as a trend, right? Where attackers these days are going after end users. They're not beating down the front door of these firewalls and everything else on people's websites. They tend to actually go after the users in broad, large-scale, mass sort of malware campaigns that you guys I'm sure have all seen in your inboxes, right, in your spam folders. And so what they do is once they get access to your machine, once you click that link, or open that email, or done whatever it is that you shouldn't have done, they have basically the remote control of your machine, and they can follow you into pretty much anything you have access to. And so what we've seen basically in the last 5 years is this kind of crazy ramp, really, in cybercrime, right? That pretty much tracks the evolution of malware, and it's pretty bad. It's to the point now where you guys, I'm sure, see it, right, in all the major headlines, right, almost daily or every week. The authorities are winning some, they're losing others, but generally speaking, it's a very asymmetric kind of battle, right? So no one knows exactly how large sort of the problem is, but from what's public alone, it's clearly a really large issue. So we we basically decided to go after this problem by taking a technology, or not necessarily technology, but basically an approach to solving that problem that's been around for 20 years or more. Two-factor authentication, where rather than having just a user and password, which can be shared, stolen, lost, guessed, etc., we augment that with a hard second factor, something you have. With two factors meaning something you have and something you know, and sometimes in the case of biometrics, something you are, but there's other problems with biometrics. And this stuff is increasingly now being driven by regulatory requirements, where whether it's in financial services, banking, or e-commerce, or healthcare, to protect sensitive data, to protect consumer data, personal health information, personal identifying information.